Hello and welcome to the segment number 3 of the course Geographical Peculiarities of Kuttanad, Environmental Issues and Possible Solutions. So, in segment number 1 and segment number 2, we have discussed with regard to the introduction of the course, the geographical peculiarities of the place called Kuttanad, the uniqueness of the place, with regard to the soil in the place, with regard to, we discussed in segment number 2 with regard to the past and the present floods in Kuttanad and what are the effects of this past and present floods in the environment of Kuttanad, and how the habitat has been changed in 1924 flood and in 2018 flood. We saw that the fertility of the soil improved in both the times. Whenever there is flood, whenever the rivers bring silt and sediments into the soil of Kuttanad, the fertility increases and people start staying over there for sure. But in 2018, because of the built up area being very much compared to that in 1924, people after the flood, some of the people started going away from the place. So, the reverse is happening over here. So, we have stopped at that particular segment. Now, in this segment, we are going to see some of the habitual issues and some flood mitigation measures. I have given the name purposefully as habitual issues, not as issues of habitat. In fact, this would have been read as issues of habitat. The flood actually affects habitat only, but people are habituated in some way or the other, and that facilitates the floods. It facilitates the ill effects of flood. That is why the name is given as the habitual issues of people, and some of the flood mitigation measures which were adopted or which were constructed, which were built in the place. So, we go into the segment number 3. So, we have been discussing about the flood in the and its effects in the previous segment number 2 precisely. Some of the habitual issues is like people in Kuttanad, they are adapted to living with water. That is a habituated with people of Kuttanad. Very limited loss of life happens during the mega flood of 2018, and that is an indicative of this for sure, because people know that flood will come, it will go, but maybe during the peak time of the flood they have to be away from home. Almost 95% of people from the lower Kuttanad were evacuated, and also from upper Kuttanad were evacuated during that time, I remember. But after that people came back to their houses. Many of the houses were retrofitted, some of the houses were reconstructed and people started living over there. But after that, because of say high tidal effect, in some of the houses water the water level was maintained just like that, and people could they have to go away from the place. So, that is a different story. So, we are dealing with some of the habitual issues. So, as it is given there, people are accustomed to live with water. But this also is very common, encroachments, because there is not much garden land available in the place for the habitat to grow. So, what people do is they encroach into the river basins, they encroach into the floodplains, and they make their buildings over there. So, building homes on houses on canals, on paddy fields, at the mid of the paddy field, on the thin bunch between the paddy field and the water body, that is very common. In addition to road networks. So, plenty of roads came into existence in the place after say 1980. In the 1950s, the Alappuzha-Changanacherry road started its construction, and that divided the entire Kuttanad into 2 different regions, say the southern region and the northern region. And besides that, plenty of other roads connecting to this Alappuzha-Changanacherry road came into existence, and other major roads like Thagari-Ambalappuzha road also came into existence. And these roads divided the place into say different segments, different compartments, and flood was actually increasing because of this kind of road construction. Another thing is that how the soil is taken care of while constructing the roads, that is also very important. The soil which is available there is not ready for road construction. what people did in the beginning, as we are going to explain with regard to the AC road, the Alpura-Changarachi road, is that the clay which is available from the place has been used to construct roads, and the result is going to be obvious: settlement. The road settles down continuously, and you need to raise the road for sure with the same material or with foreign materials. And again, the soil below, the subsoil and subsoil below is very weak. It settles further and spreads further. You need to protect the embankments also. So, the settlement of soil as well as the blockage of water due to such kind of road construction, network of roads, that also affected the damages due to flood. This also is included as a habitual issues, right? Because people need transportation, and they need roads for sure for that. Shallow bridges, kind of box culverts. So, plenty of road networks came into existence, and in many cases to cross over the small canals or bigger canals or the say the rivers, the engineers used a quicker solution like box culverts during that time. Box culvert is construction of the top slab, the side wall, and the bottom slab, bottom foundation together, just like a box. That facilitates, that actually improves the bearing capacity of soil for sure, and the load is going to be spread uniformly into the soil for sure. This kind of advantages are there, but at the same time, when the entire box culvert settles down after a period of time, the headroom which was available for water transport would not be there. And many a times what happened is that the canals were reduced in their width, and then only the bridges were constructed. So, because of these reasons, the depth of waterway available there was very limited, and many of the boats could not actually pass through the kind of bridges. And there was a controller of the boat for sure. Maybe he was sitting on the top of the boat earlier, and now the cabin of that controller, we call him as a shrank. So, that person is now sitting inside the boat. The entire office or entire controlling that office of that particular person is now sitting inside the boat, because the boat cannot have that much height. Boat cannot afford to have that much height. So, shallow bridges cause the hindrances. Then this is a very important thing: non-engineered constructions of houses and other structures, they cause much of the damages. Ancient people who lived in the place, they knew the soil, they knew the water, and they knew how to construct their buildings over there. I can say that my ancestral house, which was existing in the place called Kavalam, and another one in Kainagiri, they were built on random rubble masonry only, but the soil below that is not clay. The soil below that has been removed, the clay soil below that has been removed by the ancestors, and river sand was poured in at that place. They knew that river sand is very good in transferring load from the superstructure to the soil below through the foundation. Because of the saturated river sand below the foundation, the building is existing. The buildings are existing. There are plenty of buildings existing just like that, because of this particular kind of a construction. And also plenty of other indigenous kind of soil stabilization techniques were adopted by the people then. But now, we will discuss about the indigenous soil stabilization techniques later in another segment. That is why I am not going to deep into that. But now, during the recent constructions, people construct over the surface without any kind of engineering, I would say, and that causes serious structural damages, and maybe sometimes the failures are catastrophic also. Excessive thrust on tourism, the houseboats. When the transportation of the paddy and the rice was through the road networks, the large trucks came into the place. They transported the paddy as well as the husk, as well as this say the grains. Then the use of the big boats, it was meager at that time. So, the big boats were converted to houseboats at that time, and plenty of houseboats are now plying in the place. More than say 2000 houseboats are there in Kuttanad, I would say. But when tourism was promoted through the houseboats and other means, people never looked into the waste disposal or waste management of that. That is a very severe problem now. Sanitation is a very severe problem in the place. So, these issues are coming out because of the habitual or the habits of the people. That is why they are included as habitual issues, right. So, these are also part of the kind of environmental issues also. Now, let us see in the second part of this segment some of the flood mitigation measures which are there in existence. So, the issues were discussed in the past also. In the 1950s it was discussed, and the engineers, the then engineers came into say 3 major solutions, and they are, as you see in the screen, the Alappuzha-Changanaശ്ശേരി road cum canal, the Thottappally spillway, and the Thaniyamukam bund. These 3 mitigation measures were constructed for 3 different purposes for sure. The AC road, the Alappuzha-Changanaശ്ശേരി road, is to improve the transportation for sure for the people of Kuttanad and to travel from Alappuzha to Changanaശ്ശേരി directly. It is a road which is almost going like a straight line except for one curve at Kidangara. So, that divides the entire Kuttanad into 2 regions, a southern region and a northern region. The continuous flow of water from the southern region to northern region was affected because of that. That is another thing. But the construction of the AC road, as you can see here, this is the typical picture of the AC road, as you can see in the as a picture over here in the screen. So, you can see on the left there is a road, and the right there is a canal. The canal was not a designed one, I would say. Rather, the canal was formed when the soil from that region is taken to construct the road, right. So, a canal was formed alongside the AC road, and the road was constructed from the clay which is dug out from the canal. So, transportation became possible. The road was constructed and the final commissioning of the road has done only in the 1990s, though it was started in the 1950s because of several bridges to be constructed in between. The last bridge which was constructed was the Nedumudi bridge. So, in the early 1990s it was commissioned fully. But what happened was, as I told you, the free flow of water from the southern side of Kuttanad to the northern side was affected by this particular AC road, though the transportation was improved, and the canal which was running almost along the entire length of the particular AC road was also encroached by people. So, water was flowing. So, the AC canal was employed after the construction of the AC road to run off water from the upper Kuttanad region, especially from the Tiruvalla-Changanaശ്ശേരി region to the Vemanad lake. But since this canal has been encroached by people, the purpose was not served. Another flood mitigation measure was this Thottappally spillway. That is also a well engineered work in the beginning. It was constructed towards the southern side of Kuttanad, as we know by now. There was no opening to the sea in Thottappally at that time, but water from 3 major rivers, Pampa, Manimala and Achankovil, they are coming to that place, and the engineers found that if an opening is made to the sea at that particular place, then water would have been drained off. So, Kuttanad would have been saved from flood. That was the idea. But after the construction of the Thottappally spillway, the leading channel to the Thottappally spillway was a very narrow one. And because of that, the envisaged purpose was not served fully. It is now working at 1/3 of its capacity, as it is reported, 1/3 of its capacity. And now the Thottappally spillway is in news regularly because of the kind of sand mining from there. Somebody say that it is sand mining, somebody say that it is opening the sand so that water can run off to the sea. So, many a time sandbars will be formed between the sea and the freshwater bodies. So, sandbars have to be opened for the water to run off. But that also invited several troubles. people in the locality, they actually were getting agitated because of that. The result is that finally the Thottapalli spillway is not running fully, not functioning fully. Many of the shutters of the Thottapalli spillway is also under question. Though there were repair happened during the past, the shutters were of not of sufficient height, and opening and closing is also a difficult job. Mechanical opening and closing is happening over there. Now the shutters are closed, and even though the shutters are closed, the water is flowing from the sea side to the freshwater side above the shutters. There is a gap between the shutter and the bridge which is above that. So it is partially a successful one, I would say, as a flood mitigation measure. So this is the picture of the Thottapalli spillway. And the third one is the Thanimukam barrage or the Thanimukam bunch. The purpose of that particular flood mitigation measure was to prevent entry of salt water from the northern part of Kuttanad to the southern part of Kuttanad, and this is constructed in the northern part of Kuttanad. But the purpose is to facilitate the second crop. There are two crops in Kuttanad in general. One is a puncha crop which happens during the summer season, and second one is the second crop which is happening during the monsoon season. So to facilitate the two crops in every Padashekharams, in every polders of Kuttanad in the southern side, this kind of a barrage was envisaged, and it was constructed in say 3 different stages. But due to the construction of that, the fish passage was affected. The fish require, especially like prawns, they require salty water for their breeding and for their life, aquatic life. So many of the farmers, fish farmers, objected the closing of the bunch, and many of the paddy farmers, they objected the opening of the bunch. So there is a trade-off between when to open, when to close the Thanimukam bunch. So a dynamism has to be maintained in opening and closing of this Thanimukam bunch. Otherwise, the southern part of Kuttanad is going to be affected because of this. So all the three kind of flood mitigation measures are in place, but they are not functioning to the envisaged purpose. That is the conclusion of this. Yeah, this is a picture of the Thanimukam barrage or the bunch, right. Another very major important flood mitigation measure is the polar walls. The polar wall construction or polar wall protection, as it is given there in the slide, it has been done in the 18th and 19th century also. So people like Murikimuttu Lausep, Chalayil Irivi Keshava Panikar, and other kind of farmers, they were pioneers in this. They constructed bunds which is having a width of like 10 feet on the top and 20 feet in the bottom, and having say side slope like 1:2 or so. The bunds were constructed in the Kayal or in the Vemanad lake by inserting coconut poles and aracanut poles, and in between bamboo and other kind of vegetation were used kind of as kind of reinforcement. Clay was used as a filling material. So many human hours were required for that. So kind of bunds were constructed, and the water inside the bunds were pushed outside or pumped outside using the kind of pumps available at that time or the kind of wheels available at that time, the water wheels. Diesel pumps were very limited, available to some limited extent at that time, but they were using that to whatever is available at that time. But the breakage of bund is also very common, because you see sometimes the bunds become very thin because of continuous action of water, continuous flow of water, and because of wind flow also the bunds become very thin and very weak, and bund breakage is a very common scenario at that time. So they have to be strengthened for sure. So what happened is later this random rubble masonry or dry rubble masonry came into existence. So the kind of engineers, the engineers of the irrigation department and the PWD, they promoted this kind of masonry. But stones were to be brought to that place, granite stones were to be brought to that place, and kind of protection works were made. But what happened is, you see, if you want to protect all the bunds in Kuttanad, now you require the say more than 1000 kilometers of bund to be protected, and the amount of the volume of the granite stones which are required to be brought in from the Western Ghats is enormous, very huge, and that is also going to affect the environment for sure. So, there has to be a trade off between how to protect the bund, and other say drawbacks also are there for this random rubble masonry or dry rubble masonry, because the founding soil over there is clay only, and usually the heavy stones will go down the clay, and that may affect the kind of bund protection. So, dry and random rubble masonry were made use of for bund construction, as it is given here. They are employed to protect certain the earthen bunds, and it affects say bending strength also to some extent only, retaining resistance also. However, the foundation can easily settle down because it is clay. Land reclamation was good for food produce for sure, but it was only to a limited extent. But because of this bund breakage, the kind of food produce also has been affected, and non-environmental friendly kind of bund construction also were also detrimental to the natural ecosystem of the locality. So, these are some of the flood mitigation measures which were adopted in the place, and some of the drawbacks also has been discussed in detail in this section, and in the coming sections we are going to see some of the projects which were actually brought in from these limitations, and we can see through some such as small projects how the problems which were posed due to these environmental issues can be overcome, and then how to apply such kind of results into the entire Kuttanad region. Thank you.